He's the biggest wet wipe, right? He's like, oh, because last time, right, audience, last time we did an episode, okay, was last week, and he was like, oh, it's a bit late to be recording at 8 o'clock at night. Oh, I need to be able to get my head down nice and early. So then we're like, oh, should we do it nice and early then in the day? And he's like, oh, well, I can't do it too early, and I need to exercise 1 hour before we do the video to make sure that my energy is maximised. Like, that's the stuff he comes out with behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen.
Look, I get taken the piss out of for A, looking after myself, 8 hours sleep, exercising. I know you're a bit afraid of that, Rich, but you should try it one day. It's good for you. And
I had to have 2 operations on my knee, thank you very much. I've had a reason to sit on my ass and do nothing.
Yeah, well, we won't get into that.
It's just incessant whining, isn't it? Our WhatsApp group is comprised of incessant whining from Swano about what he can and can't do and when he can and can't do it.
No, I'm up at the crack door. I know you are too, but I work very hard, and then I come home. I try and get things done. You guys want me to sit around and wait for 4 or 5 hours before we sit down and have a chat? I am tired. I want to get my head down. So there's no problem in bringing it forward.
To start by sorting out your internet connection, if that's all right. That would be the first thing. What have we been up to, boys? Anyway, what are we even talking about today? Because I'll be brutally honest, I've just jumped on now with absolutely no idea where this episode's going to go.
But it's like there's always these endless things to talk about, isn't it? But you don't want to keep banging on about the same thing all the time that everyone's banging on about. I mean, personally, I think we've got to talk a little bit about what's coming up this week, local elections.
Absolutely.
If you're lucky enough to have one.
I think this week. Well, yeah, and I've done some videos on this, and we can explain this a little bit about what actually happens with elections. So I think a lot of people don't understand that elections effectively run on a 3-year cycle. It's a 4-year cycle by standard, but you get they're called second and third elections. So essentially, one part of the country will have elections 1 year, another part will have elections another year. Mayoral elections can be done at a different time period. So effectively, we go through a 3-year period of constant elections, and then we have like a 1 or 2 year gap, depending when a general election falls in. So obviously, this time round, I believe we're focusing on Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex. It's kind of like the east of England, with 1 or 2 other counties dotted in there. But yeah, it's a lot of seats, 6,000 to 7,000, and obviously London. It's a big one. It's a massive one, because I think I don't think Khan's up for election, is he? No, he is. He is up for election. No, is he not? It's not an actual mayor election.
It's next year, isn't it?
But yeah, I think it's next year. Yeah, maybe someone will have to just pop up something researchy for that. But it will see if Labour lose a lot of those boroughs, that's going to seriously affect his position there, and hopefully a little bit more.
What are you guys seeing around your areas? I'm seeing a lot of Green and quite surprisingly a lot of Lib Dems as well.
Yeah, but they do
so
do
many
well.
Lib Dems.
Lib Dems. What we have to remember is the Liberal Democrats are a 300-year-old establishment machine. They know what they're doing. They're not daft. They've got a lot of people in the system. They've got councils. They've got councillors in pretty much every council. Even if they don't control them, they've got elected councillors there. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid. They know how the system works. They know how to run the machine. But I do think we're going to see a massive shift. Obviously towards reform. We know what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Greens. We're talking about reform, Liberals, Tories, Labour, and it's just a case of it's a good chance for people to send a message, a very big message. We're sick and tired of this 100-year rule. We're sick and tired of the mismanagement of money. And I think if you look at any council, my council, particularly in Suffolk, £730 million in debt after 21 years of the Tories, says enough. It says it all, really. Obviously, we can question and challenge anyone in the future about how well they'll do or won't, but until they're proven to have or have not done a good job, that's just opinion. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do we see the Greens and Liberals coalitioning? Well, it's not a case of coalitioning, because that doesn't exist until the election's done. The coalition can happen afterwards, where Greens and Liberals might join forces to form a majority council, but the election has to take place first. But tactical voting is very much a left thing.
I believe in my local area, I'm pretty sure Labour and Lib Dems have actually stepped down so that the Greens get more of a vote to stop reform. Um,
Yeah.
do you think that people might trust Lib Dems more than the Greens or Reform because they are a trusted establishment party and they've got the history and they've got the experience?
Rich?
I think they may become, shoot me on this one, they may become the new protest vote against the likes of Reform, against the right-wing parties. People know full well that Zach Polanski is completely inept, the titty whisperer, as he's widely known. I mean, you only have to look at some of the things that he's been saying in the past 7 days. The amount of backlash he's had from his own supposed supporters has been monumental online alone. So I think the Lib Dems could very well become the next sort of protest vote. That's the way I see it. The Lib Dems they're such a strange bunch to me, right? Because I've never seen them canvassing in my area. You never see the Lib Dems, and yet signs will just pop up here and there. Oh, Lib Dem, Lib Dem, Lib Dem, and I think, what the bloody hell's going on here? Like, you never see them about, but their signs just pop up from nowhere, and then they get votes. They get actual votes. So
Because I think a lot of people with them are people that sit on the fence.
Yeah.
And the Lib Dems historically have kind of been used as the vote to maintain the order of Parliament, where you've got majority, we all know they just pick up their bags, swap over seats every 10 to 15 years, Labour and Tory. Lib Dems way back in the early last century were a prominent figure in that. But not last century, because I say that now, like the 20th century, but they weren't even really a government in the 20th century. We're talking 19th century, to be fair, and 18th century, when the Liberals were a very prominent party there. But I think that's what happens, I think, is obviously we have the general public galvanised towards those established political parties. And then when they're sitting on the fence about Labour and the Tories, they generally tend to jump to the Liberals, who, for the larger part, really are just using softer worded versions of exactly the same sort of policy that we see anyway. We see they're kind of aligned on green politics and socialism. They do swing a little bit sometimes into right-aligned stuff. I would say most political parties have a little bit of left about them. Most have a little bit of right about them, depending on the percentage you levy on that. Whereas the Liberals, for me, have always just sat there as a bit of we don't want to push the boat too much. We're kind of the safe vote, if that makes sense.
So they're ready in case the chaos unfolds and the two parties don't deliver, which we're kind of at. So maybe Lib Dems will do very well. The way I see it is we're all kind of under the blanket that we're desperate for change. We need change. It doesn't matter if you're left voting, right voting, or in the middle. The way I see it, the right are voting for reform, for the change. The left are voting for Greens for the change. And those that don't really want to go either side, Lib Dems are perfect for them. So
yeah,
I think they'll do well.
Do you think we're going to see? I mean, first of all, do we think Bruce has been on the sunbeds? Because I'm looking at you, Brucey. For anyone who's watching this and not just listening, Brucey, you do
realise it's been 23 degrees outside for the best part of 10 days, and I work from home, so I can literally go outside and lay on my sunbed. I've been my best mate said this to me yesterday as well.
It's all right for some. No, I think we're going to see what we're going to see is a lot of independents coming forward as well, because so many people now, right, I'm going to run in my local area. They put their deposit down and then they run as independent. So I think we're going to see a lot of that as well. I think these local elections are going to be, I think they're going to be a complete and utter mess, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I think it's going to.
I think we're going to. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be absolutely nuts.
It's going to show the true.
We're going to get into a 10-year period, and we saw a similar thing around about 2010, where a lot of people have become politically disinterested. We saw a lot of people, that was when UKIP came about for the very first time. A lot of people galvanised towards UKIP. I even voted for them myself as an ulterior party to vote for. I know Aaron probably was still in nappies then.
I didn't realise you were racist.
I was working even back then.
But at the time they weren't. I don't even think they are now. They're not racist. I don't like. They're not.
No, I'm joking. I don't think they are.
I think they've gone down. I've said this before, and I'll maintain it again. I think they've gone down a sectarian side of politics now. I think they're very Christian aligned, and they're doing more of a Christian vote rather than anything else. So they do swallow up a small percentage of people into that. But yeah, I think we're going back to 2010. There wasn't a lot of confidence in the political parties. Obviously, we ended up with a Liberal Democrat and Conservative coalition in a general election. And then obviously, after a few years, the Libs sort of died. I think that was a very good example of the Liberal Democrats serving their purpose. Keep the vote inside the working parliamentary machine, and then gradually the Conservatives kind of pushed them back out. Get back in your place, keep your 60, 70 seats, just sit there ready to help back us up a little bit when we need you. And that's evidenced over a 100-year period that's what's happened. And we see it obviously all the time when it comes to voting in Parliament and things like that. They generally tend to. But I agree with Aaron. I agree with what Aaron said. I think we're going to see a very big mix-up. And it's going to be very messy in politics for the next 10 years. I think we're walking into lots of coalitions, potential either, and people aren't even talking about this, is I think we will start to see, like one of you guys mentioned earlier, is the independents coming in, is we will then start to see independents forming groups of themselves. I think we spoke about this last week in inside the councils, which then might migrate into new political parties.
Yeah, which again is not what we need. I mean, we've had so many. If you go onto the is it the Electoral Commission website itself, Brucey? Is that what it's called, where you can literally see how many parties there are at the moment? There are
tons.
Thousands of political parties right now. It's wild. So I mean, I get it.
Have you seen how many have been registered just this year alone?
Hundreds, isn't there? There's been hundreds
crazy
just this year. Yeah, it's wild. So I know I've put my eggs in Restore's basket, and I know there's a whole argument there for splitting the vote, etc. But I think the real issue right now is the fact that we've got so many people, so many parties starting up, and again we're going to have so many independents, and then some of the parties that people are backing. I'm not trying to slate Reform, but the whole the thing they've just come out with now with the green areas. What they're going to do is
I was going to get onto that.
Essentially, put the migrant camps there. Is to me, it's wild. Like, it's such a ridiculous thing to say and want to do, in my opinion. But obviously, we can discuss that, boys.
Let's get.
Would you like me to quote you your own policy?
Go on.
Restore Britain's mass deportation policy is to create detention centres all over the country to the tune of 780 million. Yeah. By the way, I'm one of those people that's read Restore Britain's policy.
Yeah.
Yes,
but not
so
in concentrated
it's contradictory.
areas. It's
right,
not
so it doesn't matter. So what's
the viewers, let's just go back before we get into the debate.
What's the distinction then?
Into it, yes.
So yeah, we are going to get into it, because the distinction is this. Rupert Lowe's made a post about this morning. Direct attack on Reform UK. I've actually done a video on this. I was going to publish this video, but we can do it here. Rupert Lowe, and lots of people in the comments, and I know lots of people that support you, Rich, and support me and you, Aaron, are multi-party. They support Restore and Reform UK.
Yep.
My question is this. Rupert Lowe, well, let's be honest, his social media team, because I don't think Rupert Lowe has posted on a bank holiday Monday. I think it's his social media team that have posted this, have basically come out and condemned Reform UK for this policy. Yet, I'm going to put it up on the screen now, because I've already got the screenshot took. If you go and read Restore Britain's mass deportation policy, Restore's own mass deportation policy says that they want to convert RAF bases into detention centres, which will be in small towns and villages across this country. They want to invest £800 million in creating these detention centres. Yet, Rupert Lowe has now posted something that's completely anti their own mass deportation policy. Because they're already doing it. Your policy already states it in black and white. This is the problem you'll have when you have a debate with someone who actually does the research.
Well, the problem...
and I don't need to be a dickhead about that.
Hang on, we've all got different opinions, so...
Yeah. So go back to the argument. If reforms is ridiculous about... And the funny thing is, right... is and this is where I'll be neutral on this. I do kind of agree with you that it is a bit ridiculous to say that and say that you're only going to put it in green areas, but that's the politics we're in at the moment.
Petty politics.
It's the kind of politics this country is in at the moment. Politics. Yes, it is.
No,
it's about.
You can't
of course
say,
it is.
oh, well, petty politics is okay because that's the situation we're in right now.
No. I didn't say petty politics, but we're in a situation where those kind of statements get people engaged. If that makes sense.
It does, but it is petty because it's just like being at school. It's saying, well, they're advocating for this, so we're just going to dump it all on them. But if the Greens win in an area off of 25% of the vote, then 75% hypothetically are going to suffer because the Greens have got in power. So it is petty politics because they're just getting one back at the Greens for advocating for open borders by saying, all right, well, we'll dump it on you, which is
But it's
petty.
worse than that.
Yeah.
It's worse than that because, okay, Bruce, it's all well and good to say, yeah, but look at your own policies within Restore Britain. But Restore Britain's policy is to put these people into these camps nationwide. Now, naturally, that creates smaller groups of people in more locations. Okay, that's the first thing. That's fine. I have no problem with that. The problem I do have is any party, and it's not me attacking reform. My issue is pumping these people into much fewer locations, which are going to end up being in much larger numbers and affecting these communities more. You can't look. You've just said that.
But their policy is they've said Reform's own post, and what Farage has said is they'll put them in RF bases. It's exactly the same policy as Restore's.
In
There's
green
no difference.
areas is what he said. It is. There's a massive difference because what he's saying is, look, we're going to put them in green areas only. That's what he said, right? Now, that is far different to spreading these people nationwide than it is to put them into concentrated areas because the majority of people in those areas voted green. You're going to punish all of these people by dumping loads of people into these areas because, it's a green constituency now. You're punishing
But there's
the people
only
who
so
live
many
there.
RAF bases. There's only so many RAF bases. So it can only happen in an area
how
where
many
these
RAF bases
bases
there are?
exist.
Do you know how many
There's
RAF
a lot,
bases
mate.
there are?
I know. Yeah, from small, tiny ones to massive. I mean, we've got like 7 in my area alone.
Yeah,
There's loads.
It's
mate.
far
And
different.
don't get me
it's
wrong,
far
like,
different,
I'm not
to put 200 people in each RAF base across the country, right, than it is to dump 1,000 in each one because they just so happen to be a green constituency. What we're talking about.
All right,
here
then
is
I'll
dumping
argue
these
the
people
logistics.
onto the
I'll
local
argue the
population.
logistics. So you're saying
it'd
it's
be much
better
cheaper.
to spread them around.
Yes.
How is it cheaper to then secure it to
No,
then the
it's
logistics
cheaper,
and security
it's cheaper to
of
do it
10
reforms
bases?
way. Let me
Right,
finish.
okay,
It's
yeah,
cheaper
fair
to
play.
do it
Yeah,
reforms
yeah.
way because what you're doing is you're putting more people into one singular area. Of course, you're going to require more staff. You're going to require more logistics. It's going to cost more money to do it Restore's way, which is to spread them all over the country, or to do it the Conservatives' way, right? Because they've said essentially the same thing. Now, I would rather pay more money and know that these people are being spread out further, but still properly staffed, still properly looked after, still properly
Security.
detained, secured, and then shipped out, than to put 1,000 of them, 2,000 of them, whatever it is, into one small community because they voted green and punish that whole community. And I'm not being funny. I've worked in military bases, right? It is far, far easier to detain 200 people and to patrol that area and to have guards on that area than it is to dump 2,000 people in there and try and watch them all. It's a ridiculous thing to do, in my opinion. It's ridiculous.
I agree.
It is. And to me, it just
But
seems
I think
like
what we're highlighting here, but I think what we've come to a impasse in that there's no perfect way of doing this, and I think either side of the argument highlights very valid concerns and issues. And let's be honest, he's only said it, but the thing is, I know why he said it, because we've seen it in the past where Green councils, particularly in Brighton, and I think it's one of their deputy leaders, I can't remember her name,
Yeah.
she's quite often on Q&A questions, where they were told to house migrants in a hotel and the council refused it, a Green council. So so the argument, I think, goes back a little bit to grievance politics, where it's perfectly okay for them to turn around and say, we welcome this mass migration, we welcome open borders, but NIMBYism, just not in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's where Reform are coming back and saying, well, actually, you know what? If you want... And I think all of us would agree, how many times have we seen these people protesting on the streets, refugees welcome here, and all that kind of stuff, and they should be in hotels. We're trying to get them out of hotels. They're getting put into HMOs. So they go into the HMOs. What happens then? They go into small towns and villages, and that's what the Greens are advocating for. So I think it's a very plausible argument to turn around and say, and I think we need to get into a situation in politics where... if you advocate for these policies and these mandates, you should be the ones that foot it.
Live with it.
What's wrong with that?
The thing that's wrong, again, I'm just repeating myself, is that it affects the entire community, not just the people who are voting
get that.
green. That's the issue. Now, if you spread the problem, for me, that's much fairer. You spread them around the country as per Restore's policy, as was Reform's policy, the Conservatives. But now that it seems like, you know, the right thing to do at the time, I don't know whether it's for, you know, clickbait online. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but to say we're going to dump vast numbers of people into much smaller communities because the majority of that community has voted for a party that we don't like is it's childish, it's petty, and what's more, I think it's quite short-sighted. It's very short-sighted.
It's going to cause more division as well. I'd much rather see it, you know, spread out fairly, and then see us actually finding some solutions so that all of the public can realise that, you know, it is an improvement sending these people back rather than just dumping them somewhere, letting them cause chaos. It's just going to cause more divide. The people in the area that didn't vote Green are going to hate the Greens. The Greens are going to hate the fact that Reform are doing that. Restore are going to hate the fact that Reform are doing that. It's just causing more division.
But let me just say this. So if you get an area, right, that's predominantly Reform, you've got an area, or even Restore, whatever, similar policies. You've got an area or a constituency, a ward, a borough, a district that are wholly against immigration, correct? So if they're against immigration, you would be voting for policy in your area to say, we do not agree with this, we don't want it here. And then if you're not prepared to stand up in your constituency and you agree with the same thing and vote for a political party that advocates to stop this happening, then obviously you're on board with it. Because you can't, I mean, I think we've got to a point in politics where, and I actually had this conversation with someone on my comments on YouTube this morning, actually, where they turned around and said, it goes with what you're saying, Rich, is that's not fair on the people that didn't vote either way. But I think what we've reached in politics at the moment is you either agree with mass deportation policy or doing something about this illegal migration one way or another, or you advocate for it, because there really isn't much of a middle ground, is there? We're not talking about legal immigration. We're talking about illegal migration. We're talking about the guys coming over on the boats. Now, if you advocate for that, surely it should be, and predominantly your constituency is advocating for a party that endorses that, then surely the burden should be on you to foot that bill. And if you're someone that doesn't agree with that, it's your responsibility to go out and vote against it. And that's the problem, isn't it? I think what we have... Yeah, sorry. You chime in.
No,
just,
it's all right.
just quickly,
I think. Go on, mate.
Go on, Rich.
Okay, I think so. You just said that we're not talking about migration. We're talking about illegal immigration, but actually, Restore's policy is quite clear as well that they're talking about all immigration. So what we're talking about is your layabouts. We're talking about people who've come here and not integrated, not even bothered to learn the language. We're talking about people who are like benefit dossers. We're talking about foreign criminals. We want them all gone. We're not just talking about illegal migrants here. We're talking about everyone who's come to this country who has purposefully made it their job to get as much as they possibly can without paying anything into the system and being a net drain on the country. We want them all gone. If those people, I don't want them here, and as a party, Restore doesn't want them here. Now, we're not just talking about illegals. That's the first thing. What was the second point you made there, Bruce?
I can't remember myself, to be perfectly honest. About I think it was about voting intention.
About footing the bill. If your
voting
area
intention
votes for it.
Because I think on before you carry on. Yeah.
Go on.
It was just about the fact that you're voting for this stuff.
There's a massive delay here. There's a massive delay. Sorry for everyone listening. I think it's Swano's fault. Let's just blame him. He's young and he's stupid. The thing is that you might get 20% of people come out and vote Green. 14% come out and vote Labour. You might get 6% come out and vote for, the Lib Dems or whatever. But you might get, and this is off the top of my head, sorry if the maths is completely off, but you might get like 60% of the constituency who don't vote at all. And so many people don't vote whatsoever. So to say, oh, well, that area, because they voted Greens, they mostly agree that, all refugees are welcome here, etc. Again, is I don't think it's the case, because what you're talking about is even if they win in that local area, you're still talking about 1 in 5 people who actually support it.
Okay, let me counter that. My opinion is this: no vote, no voice.
I'm at that point too.
No vote, no voice. And I've been advocating this for 5 years. I am sick and tired of hearing people turn around and say, there's no one there for me to vote for. Let me make this crystal clear, and I've maintained this for the best part of my entire time on social media. I do not 100% agree with Reform UK on everything. Never have, never will, because there are things in their policy that were in 2024 or pre-2024 that I did not agree with. I've got the videos and the evidence to support that. But what I do vote for is what I don't want to see. I vote against what I don't want to happen. I disagree with the Greens. I will vote for the party that's the complete of what I believe is the complete opposite of that and has the best chance of winning. Now, if you want to sit on the fence and not align yourself, instead of saying nobody represents me, I come on. No one represents you. No one represents you. That's the point of politics. You're never ever going to get a party that represents your views 100%. But people have to be educated in the fact that you need to start voting for things that align more with what you want than what you don't want. And if you want to be part of that 60% that you mentioned, Rich, then I'm sorry if you don't get off your backside and put your X in a box, which is the minimum effort required to get your voice heard in this country. And I know people will say your vote doesn't matter, because if voting made any difference, they wouldn't let you vote. Well, ironically, they tried to shut down voting, didn't they? And they have shut down voting. We're now getting voting in my area for the first time when we should have had it last year. We didn't get it because they stopped it, and they were trying to stop it this year. So it does make a difference, I believe. You're never going to get the perfect politics. You're never going to get the perfect party. But surely people have got to be in a position today where they're sitting there saying, right, we've got this agenda of open borders, this agenda of stopping open borders. Put your flag in the ground. Do you advocate for socialism, Marxism / communism, or do you vote for capitalism and bolstering entrepreneurship and wealth? And that's where you've got to sit now, and you align with the party that best represents your opinion. And if you don't vote, I'm sorry, you don't get to complain about this.
I agree.
Very good point.
There are plenty of choices. In the vast majority of constituencies in this country, there are at least 11 options. One seat, 11. I can't do this on my fingers. Once someone put a finger up, 11 options. So there's got to be something you align with. I think prior to the 2024 general election, I did a whole bunch of stuff about political parties and basically said, I went through the Greens policy, Labour's policy, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems and Reform UK, because they were the most prominent parties for that election. And I said, right, I actually align with about 50% of what the Lib Dems say. I actually align with 40% of what the Greens say. 30% of what the Conservative for me was a non-starter just because of their history, and the same with Labour. I knew what Labour would be. I read their policy. I saw this all coming. Not saying I'm big-headed or anything, but I did read the policy. So then it gave me an option: Reform, Liberals or Greens. And the Reform represented more of my belief than any of the other two. Easy.
I think we're at the point as well where...
Sorry, I'll shut up now.
Yeah, please. That was 3 attempts, but I think we're at the point now where there is a bigger fight going on, and everybody is affected about what's happening in our country. Everyone's moaning about it in some way, whether it's how we moan about it or on completely the flip side of it. So getting out there and not voting is not an excuse. It's not an option anymore. You cannot speak about it and moan, whatever side of the party, political spectrum you're on. If you're going to sit there and moan, you have to get out there and at least attempt to have your say. Maybe our votes don't matter. Maybe there is election rigging. Who knows? But at least try something. Don't just sit there in a pub moaning about how shit your life is, moaning how you can't afford to put food on the table. Get out there and actually try and have a say. It's important.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've got to be advocating. And I think it's the last bit of democracy we've got. I think the moment we abandon voting, then we're in something completely different there.
And so many people have been trained to abandon voting, haven't they? Yeah, we've been sort of like hoodwinked into it. Oh, and you see it all the time in comment sections, right? And you see it from bots. Now, for anyone listening who doesn't know what a bot is something that it's a fake account. The amount of times I've gone onto comment sections, right, and I see some fake account, and it's clearly fake. They've got 2 friends. It's a 4-year-old profile. There's always a white fucking fluffy dog as a profile picture. Ever notice it's a cat or a fluffy dog, right? You go on there. And they say the same thing. Oh, there's no point. Oh, the country's doomed. Oh, we're finished. There's no point in voting. Oh, they're all liars. Nothing is ever going to change. You see it all the time. And it's like, well, what's the alternative? Karen, what we just give up, we just roll over and take it? Absolutely not. It's not the British way. It is un-British to roll over and take anything, quite frankly, unless you are Swano's mother. I've just got to get one more joke in there, Swano. I'm sorry, but I just had to.
Oh, poor old Swano, mate. He's got you there.
Anyway, so what I was going to say was something of importance. I think for generations, like young people were so discouraged away from politics. I didn't care really. None of my friends around me really cared. It was seen for like the adults. And I think only now we're being forced into it where all generations kind of have to care and everyone kind of knows what's going on. So I think the narrative will change about, you know, your vote meaning nothing and not changing anything. But I think it's going to take a few years for that. Yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot more chaos first.
Yeah, we're in a very chaotic. Up until 2035, we're going to be in a very chaotic period for governments.
Do you not
There's
worry
going to be a year
that once it gets so chaotic, people will abandon voting altogether? That's
Yes.
what worries me.
Yes.
Yeah, it worries me, but it might be the solution if I'm being honest.
But and the thing is abandoning voting just maintains the pretend democracy that we have, because I've said this before. Labour, the Tories, and Lib Dems have got their voter base. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what people say about whether the membership of the Tories is declining, because obviously, but they have got a core voter base of at least a few million people that will constantly vote. Labour the same and Lib Dems the same. These people are trained. They're part of the civil service. They're part of the blob. They're part of the wider government machine. Because you're never going to get a situation where we turn around and we do this mass campaign where we say, right, everybody should just abandon voting, because they will always vote to keep their parties in power, because that's how the country works. So you're never going to get rid of that. We're always going to be stuck with this system unless it changes one way or another. And whether we can trust a political party, and trust me, I understand what people think of reform, but a lot of the questions that I get about it, or when I speak to people about this, is I say, reform have gone back on this, reform have said they're going to do this, and now they're not. Yet when I say, so what exactly is that? They can't really give me a coherent answer. And I know you boys know that that's the road I've gone down, because I see them as the only credible machine we've got that can change anything, especially this week, because we have two options. It's the Liberals. Well, we don't actually. We have three options: Reform UK, continue with the same old with the Liberals or Labour, or go down an even worse route with the Greens. So what are people voting
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree,
Oh,
and
definitely for now. I think. Go on, Swano. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm swaying a little bit towards restore myself. I am politically homeless, but on Thursday I'm going to be voting for reform. There's no other option right now. We need at least a stepping stone in the right direction, and I think
But
reform
let's
will
touch
at
on that a
least
sec, mate.
offer that.
Let's actually touch on that. Why do you feel politically homeless?
Because it's absolute chaos out there, and I think that more often than not, most of them, 99% of them, are probably lying to us. And I would rather take my time with it and figure it out before the general election rather than just jump on the bandwagon, which I've always done, which I think most people do in this country. So yeah, I'm not against reform. I'm not fully with restore either. I'm kind of just somewhere in the middle, trying to figure it out. But yeah.
Yeah,
I
well
think
done.
lots
Yeah,
of people are.
it's honest, mate. It's
without-
honest.
Yeah, look, so many people are politically homeless, and I think it's why we're in. It's one of the reasons why we're in such a mess politically now, is because so many people have either given up, or they simply don't know which way to turn. I think so many people are politically homeless is because we've been let down time and time and time again, and it's only human nature to be let down by something time and time again and get to the point where you think, do you know what? Sod it. I can't even be bothered to go and put an X in a box. That's just human nature. And again, to coin a common phrase that everyone uses, I think it's all by design. I think it's all pre-planned. I think they let us down again and again and again on purpose. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not for reform whatsoever, is because things that Nigel Farage is doing kind of plays into that same playbook of, build your hopes and dreams, and then I'm going to make a U-turn. And it'll be U-turns on little things, didn't want men going into women's toilets, but then he kind of U-turned on it. He spoke about, you know, the boats and the fact that, you know, we were going to, mass deportations. Then he turned around and said it was a political impossibility. Like, there's been lots of little things along the way that just made me think, do you know what? I've lost hope in you. Obviously, there was my own personal experiences with the party as well, which I won't go into. I've banged on about it enough times, but there was just enough for me personally to think, do you know what? I really feel let down by you. And that's not the reason why I jumped to Restore. The reason I jumped to Restore was because the hope that I lost with Reform, yes, that was one thing, but I found it in Restore and I found it in Rupert Lowe. They're not perfect. They're not polished. I say they're not. We're not, because I'm part of them now. I'm a branch organiser. We're not perfect. We're not polished. We're getting policies put in place. It's going to take a little bit of time. But at its core, fundamentally, I don't think Rupert Lowe has said anything that I disagree with. And through reading through the policies with Restore, there's nothing I disagree with. If something does come about and I disagree with it, you bet your bottom dollar if someone asks me about it, I will be completely and utterly honest to the party and publicly, because morally that's what we have to do now. We just have to. But so far, I think, you know, yes, okay, Restore, we're not there yet, but I mean, we're coming on in leaps and bounds, man. You can't deny that.
I don't deny it. I don't deny it at all. I do. I think for me, I think if I was a Restore voter, what I would be very disgruntled about is the fact that there was this whole hoopla around the 140,000 membership. So effectively, that means they've taken about 2.8 million quid in on membership. Now, if I was a member of a political party, especially with 2 to 3 months to go, one of the things I've noticed about Restore is they keep going on about they've got candidates being vetted in the background. They're doing all these things like making branch manager like yourself rich. My question would be is, why have you not stood paper candidates in these council elections? Because that's not a costly thing. That's very simple. That's putting a name on a piece of paper. That's having your name that when people go down to that ballot, Restore Britain's logo is sat there. It's very simple. They had the money to do it and they didn't do it. And just from what I've seen, everything they post seems to be heavily anti-reform, not really posting much about the Greens, not really posting much about the Libs, not really posting much anti-Labour stuff. You've only got to go for a quick scan of their Facebook page to show that everything is anti-reform UK. And that's where my red flag for them jumps up. I don't care about what happened in that office. I don't care about what went on, because nobody really knows that situation apart from the people involved and the individuals involved in it. Everyone's got their opinion of what happened. So take away from that, the one thing I look at, and I did highlight this a few months ago, when I went through the mass deportation policy, there was a heavy census on digital identity and a digital identity infrastructure to make that work. It's written in the policy. It's undeniable. It's very costly. And the one thing I think that highlighted for me is, irrelevant of what you think of Lowe, and I do agree with a lot of what he says, the question has to be asked is, why is he sitting in that Conservative pack seat? Because that does not happen. People who are... The Tories are quite reluctant to give that seat to any other political party in the establishment. So why would you give it to an independent person after they came out of Reform UK? And why wasn't it given to an MP inside their own party? That for me is a very legitimate question. When you've taken that amount of money off your supporter base, why are you not standing paper candidates? Why are you standing councillors in Great Yarmouth only under a completely different name? And they're just some of the red flags for me, where I think when a lot of people, and please come back at me on this, I think a lot of people accuse Nigel Farage of stuff, which, if you were being objective about it, a lot of the complaints that go towards Nigel Farage about him being establishment or controlled, you can make the same argument for Rupert Lowe. If you turn around and say Nigel Farage has got publicly backed donors, Rupert Lowe's got the same. If you want to start questioning about who's a wealthy businessman, Rupert Lowe's the same. Are they politicians sitting in Parliament? Yes, they all are. He's been sitting there for 2 years. So's Nigel Farage. So the argument that a lot of people make against Farage actually transfers directly over to Rupert Lowe. Now, I'm not against them. I've made that crystal clear. For me, Reform have got the bigger machine. And my personal opinion is nothing can be levied on them until they prove otherwise. You can't sit there and say Reform will or won't do this until they have or haven't done it. And until they're in government and have the power to do it, that's where my judgment will come. And I have maintained for a long time, if they go back on what they say, I'll be the first to come out and criticise them. And I have criticised them in the past for stuff. Whether people want to see that or not, I don't care. I'm not paid by them. I'm not funded by them. And I'm certainly not associated in their machine. I've always stood for being anti what this country is being dragged down to. And I'm going to shut up now because you guys need to talk. But I hope I got my point across.
You did. I think, John, do you want to go, Swano, or can I just...
I was just going to say what I
30 seconds
think. Yeah, go on. You go first, because you're going to answer it anyway.
Well, no, it's not really an answer. It's so. First of all, like as a branch organizer, I don't speak on behalf of the party. But what I would say is this: I asked a similar question. You know, when are we going to be standing candidates? And the answer that I got back very firmly was, we ain't doing it until we are ready, until the infrastructure's in place, the logistics in place, until we know we have got the right candidates in the right places and we know we can make an impact. Now, you can look at that in one of two ways, and I'm not going to defend anyone, but what I will say is this. Advance UK 3 months ago stood Nick Buckley, a very popular man in the area, right? He's got an MBE for all the charity work that he's done. He frequently goes out and helps people off his own back. He's got local businesses.
He's a good guy.
Is a good guy, and I know him personally. He lost to Sir Oinks a lot, okay?
Yeah.
Because they weren't ready. And they weren't ready, and because they weren't ready, they went out, they did some leafleting, they did some flyering, all the rest of it. They did a little bit of canvassing for, I think it was like 2 or 3 days, and they put a stall up, okay? But fundamentally, they weren't ready. Now, I spoke to people within Advance UK, and I'm no political brainiac. I said, look, this is a mistake. Please don't stand him. He's a good guy. It's going to be an embarrassment. Now, Nick wanted to stand anyway, so that's his decision. But when you start standing candidates in areas when you've just been established, when people largely still don't know who you are yet, not in the same way they know who Reform is, because let's be honest, okay? People do not vote. I don't care what anyone says. Most people do not vote for a candidate. They vote for a party, even in their locals. They see Reform UK on the ballot box and they go, right, tick in that box. They don't even look at the name of the candidate. So for me personally, it makes sense to not stand candidates yet, to get the party up and running, to get the logistics, the infrastructure and everything in place first. With regards to being part of the establishment, I think there are different ways you can be part of the establishment. You can have businesses, you can be wealthy, you can have connections to BlackRock. Look, have you ever bought shares in Apple or Nike or Adidas? They're all connected to BlackRock. Like, it's very hard now to be part of the corporate world and not have connections in some way to the likes of BlackRock, Vanguard, etc. So yes, you could argue because you have a business and there's whatever connections to whoever and they're part of the WHO. Well, guess what? If you go far enough up the chain, everyone is. So there's that side of things. But I think the other side of things is what I like about Rupert Lowe and Restore is that yes, you can argue he's part of the establishment because he's rich, because he's had businesses, etc., etc. You can go through Companies House. But he has never towed the establishment line in terms of his rhetoric, whereas I think Nigel Farage has on several occasions. I can give examples, or I can let Swano finish. But yeah,
go for it.
That's where I'm at with what you've said. What did you say, mate?
So go for it. Carry on.
Thank you. Okay, so what was
come
the
on,
last
Rich.
bit I just said then? What was the last bit I just said then? No, go.
I can give you examples.
Examples of establishment from Farage.
Yeah, so things like, for example, when he sits there on an interview and he says, thank you, my memory is shocking, I'm absolutely knackered. Not your type of version knackered, Swano, like actually tired, like Menga tired. So when he sits there and says, you know, in the run-up to the last general election, oh, we're going to deport all illegals, you know, we're going to push back against his, you know, radical Islam, blah, 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 blah. And then after the general election, he comes out, he sits on a sofa in an interview and he says, not going to do it. It's a political impossibility. You know, essentially, and I'm just paraphrasing here, we have to, you know, embrace Islam. We can't push back against it because it's a political.
That's a bit of a stretch. That's a bit of a stretch.
Well, it's not. It's not, because that's essentially what he got to when he sits there again in another interview, a separate one, and says, "Oh, you know, we have to take it on a case by case basis as to whether a man can go into a woman's changing room or whatever it was, you know, toilets." It's like, no, that's not. That's just not right. But I believe he said it because he thought, well, you know, that's the line that I should be towing, because he's tiptoeing around opinions and personally, he's either getting kind of entrapped within that establishment line, or he's just not fucking man enough to say this is what I think, and you can either like it or lump it.
I think either way, whether a party is establishment or not, I think when they get into power, they still come up against the establishment. So
Hmm.
Rupert Lowe's brilliant. He says it how it is, and that's kind of why I support him. I think we need someone that's unapologetically patriotic to run this
But that's
country.
kind. This is sorry to interrupt, mate. That's kind of the point. He can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Last one.
So I'm saying that you've really thrown me off there. Um, yeah. Cheers, Bruce.
My
This is
point
what he
is,
does.
it's
This is what I
very.
mean. I forgot.
This is what this is my point. It's very easy to sit there and say these things until you get to the point of having to enact them.
But hang on, because I'm backing up your best buddy. So now
Go
I'm on track. So Rupert Lowe will say it how it is out there publicly, and I think that will, if he gets in power, land him in. Well, I think it's already landing him in sticky situations. He's being blacked out by the media. No one wants to talk about him. No one's inviting him on talk shows, etc., etc. If Nigel Farage is genuine in our best interest, then he is playing the game very well in not being too vocal about it. That's just how I see it as being on the side of the fence as to why maybe he's not being so direct. Is because you are still going to come up against the establishment when you're in power.
That's the thing, and I'm glad you've made that distinction because it shows you understand it. Because being part of the establishment means you need to be in the system, which Reform aren't by any stretch of it. You could argue now they've got some councils that they could be influenced by it. But I think for anybody to sit there and think, and Rich, it goes back to what where we first started this. If you go back and look at Advanced UK, yeah, there's a very big difference between let's just look at them, yeah. In September, their branding's all over UTK. You've got 1 million people turn up in London, 3 million people across the board watching that parade. We were all there. We were doing digs at that. We saw it firsthand what it was for what it was. You've then got Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson basically advocating for Advanced UK. They were the next big thing. Then you go fast forward 3 to 6 months. I can't remember the actual timeline on it, but probably about 6 months with the Nick Buckley thing. They got a very, very big wake-up call to the difference between picking up 40,000 members over a very short period of time, being put up on a pedestal at a very big, big protest, by the way. We're not talking small here. They were advertised in front of a large, large amount of people. And look what happened. They got 158 votes in a by-election, which is effectively a parliamentary seat. So that shows the scale of it. Now, don't for 1 second think I'm not past the point of thinking that Reform could not be twisted or shaped, that they would comply with what the establishment is. But to suggest they're part of the establishment now, I think is a stretch, considering if you see how condemned they are inside Parliament on a week-to-week basis. As they get closer to becoming a real political a political party, a ruling political party inside Parliament, will they have to make compromises? Absolutely. There are 2 million people that work for the government, whether you like it or not. 2 million people work inside the government. And I'm talking like civil service, NGOs, regulators, think tanks. These have all been aligned to conservative, liberal and Labour ways of thinking. If you actually believe, and I'm sorry to say this, but if you believe Restore are going to be any different in that they can formulate 327 people who, by the way, they've already made crystal clear they will not recruit out of what they deem as the establishment. So who are you getting into that party who goes into government and understands how that runs? Because I think anybody who competently understands how anything works in this country would say, you're not opening a sweet shop without having someone who understands how to do accounting. You're not opening a engineering company without having people that can come in and see the cogs of that machine working, how the logistics works. There are things you have to do to get those people in. So I'd always maintained, and this has never changed for me, I said, and I've got the videos to prove this again, in 2022, I would accept that 25% of Reform UK's candidates would come out of the establishment. They have to, because you need people that understand foreign policy, national security, you need people that understand how the councils work, you need people that understand policy, legislation, regulation, you need how to understand how these people inside it who are sitting inside these positions, these grade 6, 7, these general director positions operate and who they align with, and you have to be able to work with those people. Otherwise, and we've seen it before throughout political history, you'll be destroyed. You'll be done. The media and the establishment will turn on you so fast, you'll be out the door, and we'll be doing a vote of no confidence. And this is where I see the problem is, do I think reform can't be compromised? Absolutely not. I'm not a fucking idiot. I haven't been doing what I've been doing for the last 4 years to sit there and say they're the perfect political party that are going to go in there and make everything so much better for everybody. But for me, they're still the only option. We've got to get a change to shift that machine. Does that make sense?
Yes and no, because obviously we're talking about the establishment, but I think the establishment that I'm alluding to is perhaps slightly different to the establishment that you might be. I don't know. I don't class
Westminster.
everyone who's but again, it's like you say,
Bigger
it's
than
NGOs,
that.
It's the likes of the WHO, WEF, BlackRock, Vanguard, all the rest of them. It's the politicos. It's not. People talk about the establishment, and it's like, oh, if you're a businessman who's done well, your establishment. You know what I mean? It's like
that's naive and pathetic. Yeah,
yeah. It's the definition of what the establishment is. Yes, Rupert Lowe, you can argue, Restore, Advance UK. Look at Advance UK. Okay, Ben Habib and a lot of his people in the top corridor have got links to BlackRock themselves. But you do when you start doing well for yourself. It's just how it works.
Yeah, that's corporate establishment, mate. That's totally different.
It's corporate.
Yeah.
So
political is what we're talking about.
But political comes back to corporate because the politicians are owned by the corporations. It is all corporate at the end of the day.
It is, but I think it's quite a lazy argument, or it's quite a lazy approach to say that because someone or something is part of the establishment, they're inherently bad, evil, toxic, whatever. Like, it's not always the way. And I think it's very easy to say so-and-so is part of the establishment, so therefore they must be the boogeyman. Like, I just don't think it's always the case.
It's just the head, really. It's at the top.
And yes, there will be people lower down. There'll be people, on the lower rungs of the ladder who... It's the same in anything, mate. You can go get a job at McDonald's, Bank of America, BlackRock. You know what I mean? You can go and work in Downing Street or whatever. You're going to get good and bad people everywhere. So someone being part of the establishment doesn't inherently mean that they're bad. That's my opinion, okay? People are still people at the end of the day. Yeah. Sorry, were you going to go then, Bruce?
No, I agree with you.
All right, there's a terrible delay. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the whole establishment thing. For me, it's more, again, it's the rhetoric. It's not so much the actions. And again, I'm not just bashing Farage, but for me, it kind of shows weakness to say, well, I want to go up against the establishment, so therefore I have to become part of the establishment. And the way to do that is to take on the establishment and then also speak the narrative of the establishment. We can't fight back against, mass immigration. It's a political impossibility, all the rest of it. It's that sort of stuff that worries me when someone is willing to say and do whatever it takes to just get into power. Yes, I get it. You've got to kind of toe some lines to get there, but on the second hand, it just worries me, mate. I think that's the root of it,
100% get that, mate. I do get that, and I'm with you on that, 100% with you on that, because I think we all agree that the country needs to make a shift, that we need a shift from the decline we've seen over the last 30 to 40 years. And I think all of us are just scraping for what's going to be the best thing to do it. But I think a lot of, we're trying to have a conversation about this and debate this. Most people won't do this. Most people will take a headline. They'll take, I don't like what that person said, I'm shifting there. I don't like what was inferred there. So I forget the other 90% of what they actually stand for with me, because this person said one thing and this person said that. I'm going to turn my back on them. And I'm not in any way trying to shift anyone towards anything, because one thing I've always advocated for is people have to make their own decisions, and they have to live by those decisions and suffer the consequences of those decisions. And if you aren't prepared to put your ex in a box, if you aren't prepared to get off your backside, if you aren't prepared to do the bare minimum, then you suffer the consequences of it. And I think all of us are advocating for a point, especially you, Rich, with kids. Swanno, you'll probably have this in the future. I myself have got kids. I see a lot of rhetoric around civil war and revolution. I don't want my son growing up in that fucking world. I want to still believe that we can get people in that actually do represent us. And I think all of us just want something perfect, but it's never going to happen. And we have to accept, what are we prepared to compromise to get the direction we need? That I think's the reality, isn't it?
Do you know what I think it's going to be? I think it's going to be digital ID. I think that's what we're going to all compromise on. I think we're going to allow immigration to get to a point where it's bad. I think we're going to struggle financially as a nation for a few more years. I think we're going to struggle to fill up our tanks with oil, which will lead to inflation, which will lead to food shortages. And I think we're all going to be crying for the perfect solution, which in their eyes, and it probably will work, is digital ID. But unfortunately, we will then be under their control forever. And I think it's all perfectly set up. I think the chaos has been caused to put us into this digital era with CBDCs, central banking digital currency, CBDCs, yeah,
Yeah.
and digital ID. And I think that we'll live in this perfect society. No one will be committing crime. You won't be able to speed. You won't be able to complain online like we do. But I think we're all going to be under the control of the establishment, the
But
real
aren't we
establishment.
already? When you really think about it, aren't we already?
We
Well, just
we are,
you know,
but
you said
not to the
about
severity.
you said about crime, then Swano, yeah, about we won't be able to commit crime and stuff like that. Have you seen what's already been rolled out in China now? And it's been there for it's been in place for about 3 years now, yeah, where they're using AI to look at people's body language, and if they think that they might be about to commit a crime, they're arresting them beforehand. It's literally Black Mirror. It's
It's here.
wild with a capital
And
W.
some news this week: Ford have just submitted a load of patents, out in America for their new trucks, and they've got that camera technology and AI technology in their where you drive. I don't know what to call it, in the cabin,
Hmm.
and it reads
Yep.
your eye and your body language. So if you look angry or
Yep.
your pupils are slightly diluted or whatever, that car
Yeah.
does not start. That does not start.
So we've already got that right now in the UK in our HGVs. Obviously, I'm a HGV driver by trade, and I can be driving along in my truck, and you'd be sat on the motorway for 3-4 hours, and you think, oh god, I'm starting to feel it here, and you get a bong on the dashboard saying you seem sleepy, time for a rest. Like
Wow.
Really?
it's constantly scanning. There's a
Wow.
little so it's constantly reading you. There's AI in the cabs now. I fully agree with this part of it, where if you pick your phone up, it knows your phone's in your hand and it'll send a report back. So not an issue with that. If you're driving a 44-ton chunk of metal, you should not be on your phone ever. But for me, it kind of crosses a line when it's reading your facial expressions and telling you when you should be taking breaks and rest stops and stuff, because as we've seen with digital ID, with all of this stuff, it creeps in slowly bit by bit. And we're seeing it now. People say all the time, don't they, Bruce? We had this discussion the other day. People say, they go on their Facebook, right, or their X, and they say, I will not comply. They go and do and look, if you want to go and do a digital ID protest, you crack on. But they're going on, right? The digital ID lot had this, they had their placards up and they had QR codes on the back of the posters.
Oh,
Like,
mate, don't.
sign up for our
It's
newsletters and stuff.
fucking
And
hilarious.
it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, to literally use the QR code reader, the software, you've signed the terms and conditions. Like, to go on Facebook and write a bullshit post, oh, I will not comply. It's like, no, you literally already
Scan my
are because you're
QR
on
code to come and
social
join
media.
our petition online.
It's
I think
nuts.
the problem with digital ID is it links everything digital. So it links our bank account to this AI technology to it just links everything to one. So,
But this is the
there's no
thing,
room
Swano.
hang on. There's just no
Go on.
room for argument. So say my nan's fallen ill, I bomb it down the motorway, get her to hospital. I'm doing that no matter what. No matter if it gets me 10 years in jail in 20 years' time. I'm going to do that for my nan's sake. You cannot appeal your fine for speeding. There is no room. It's out of your bank before you even know it. And it's just too much control. And it's control we can't get back from.
I was so a couple of years ago when I was in the army, one of our guys. So I lived on the Pads estate, and one of my mates next door, but one. Because basically, if you've not got a family, you live inside the wire in like the billets. I think that's the best way to describe it to people who haven't been in the army. But if you've got a family, you live in an army house. And my next door but one neighbour, we were good friends. His wife come running round one night, started banging on the door. And she was like, Rich, he's dying. I'm not laughing because it's funny. She was like, he's dying.
You
He's
said that
dying. I was
last
like, oh,
episode.
God. I know. I laugh when things are supposed to be serious. It's something I need to work on, man. And it was like it was a Saturday night. It was during COVID, the scamdemic, so we were locked down in effect. And me and the missus have been drinking. We've been out the night, and I ran round next door but one, and I went in. And went up the stairs and stuff. And my mate Carl, his name is. He won't mind me saying. He's in bed and he's like convulsing, like his whole body is just. Oh man, it was he was a sight. Gets on the phone to the ambulance, and I'm like, look, this guy's like, his body's in shock. I don't know what's going on. And she said, look, and obviously it was during COVID. She said, there are no ambulances for the next 2 hours. I was like, but this man looks like he's going to die. She said, you're going to have to chuck him in the back of the car and rush him to A&E as fast as you can. I said, look, we're all pissed. And she went, well, I can't tell you to drive. I'm just letting you know that you're not getting an ambulance for the next 2 hours. So she was kind of saying it without saying it. There's going to be, in the end, we managed to get another neighbour to take him. But like you say, there's going to be no like grey area whatsoever. I mean, don't get me wrong. If there's no one on planet Earth and I've got to get my son to the hospital and there's no ambulances, you best believe I'm driving flat out to get him there. Do you know what I mean? So these new cars now, you've got to get in and there's like a breathalyzer thing. There's, it's got to scan your pupils to make sure you're not too tired, or, it's going to come into play where it's like, well, how many carbon credits have you used this week? What, you've had 2 steaks? You ain't driving till tomorrow.
We're already seeing a bit of that on like the packaging of BLTs and stuff. It's like, this is equivalent to driving 20 miles for eating a sandwich. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's
and
coming.
That's the problem. And that's always been my issue because, and going back to some of the things you boys touched on there, when it comes to the protection of our family and stuff. So, for example, Rich, going back to you, if you're driving a 40-ton truck, yeah, and you're sleepy and tired and you plow into the back of a family car to kill 2 kids and a mum and a dad's left, it's fucking tragic. And I think anybody would advocate for something that stops that happening. And how do you do it? What do you do? Do you have someone that checks every single person that gets into a truck before they get out of bed in the morning? You need controls in some aspects. Most people will disagree with illegal migration. Most people disagree with crime in this country. So how do you manage it? How do you register people? How do you keep people in, up to the minute? We know where they are. We know what they're doing. But it's the creep, isn't it? It goes back to exactly what we said, is these things are always brought out in the best interest of the public or the best interest of the person. And when the wrong government gets in, or the wrong person gets in, or the wrong agenda starts to get levied onto society, then you see the creep, and the creep starts to happen. And do you go down a route of China, North Korea? Do you go down a more liberal route? Which I think most of us would sit there and say, oh, fucking liberals. But all of us want to live in a liberal society, really. We want to be free to be safe and to get on with our lives. Yeah. And most of us aren't running around committing crime and breaking rules and breaking laws.
In an ideal world, mate, that liberal ideology is like perfect. In an ideal world, we want
Star Trek utopia.
Fluffy, but it ain't reality.
No, of course it ain't. Of course it ain't. And that's the thing, is that's where people then have to make the distinction of, that day where you accidentally leave your card laying around and someone uses your phone and accesses your bank account and takes $3,000 out of it. Someone uses your identity and starts, doing things on your behalf, and it's really hard to track. Someone, we don't have security around certain cities and stuff, and people are running amok committing crime, which oddly enough is funny what we see now in London. Like, the statistics have been coming out on London over the last year, and it's fucking horrendous. So then you start to get the vast majority of the population who are good, faring people who just want to get on with their lives will start advocating for this kind of thing and don't look at the wider problem of it. And then you get the radicals who go against it, who then goes back to where you started this, Rich, who are then advocating against something that largely I think is you'd like to think being put in place to help people. It's when you get those people that come in and there's an ulterior motive to it. And it goes, again, mate, the QR code thing and the whole digital identity thing is a ship that sailed for me a long time ago. People have subscribed to this long time ago. You ain't shutting this down now. The problem is it needs to be some honesty about what it's actually being used for.
I think personally they're going to attempt sort of like an AI driven socialist world, and we're going to see mass unemployment. We're going to see someone called sort of along the lines of universal basic income. Elon Musk has spoken about universal high income. He is a bit more of a dreamer, and he wants to see, in my opinion, us all live kind of a fair chance at life. I don't think that the people in charge of digital ID and stuff have the same opinions. But I do think we're going to see a world where robots are building things very quickly, very cheaply. They're working 24/7. They don't complain. They don't need a pay rise. And they are going to, well, that naturally that's going to force most of us out of jobs anyway. It's partly the reason
but the
why.
thing is, Swano, sorry to interrupt, mate. We actually already have that.
Yeah. Self-service
Yeah,
tills with us, like, for a one good example, like the amount of staff now that are just not needed because of self-service tills. You know, we're paying to serve ourselves. We're not
100%.
only we're paying for the products that at higher prices than we were before self-service tills came in, but we're also saving these companies huge amounts of money
But
by
I'm
doing it ourselves.
I'm also talking about your job in the future, Rich. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about 5 years with the acceleration of AI coming in now and the acceleration of chaos, which leads to control. I believe that we are going to see, self-driving cars in the near future. We're going to see self-checkouts everywhere. I think a lot of jobs are going to be lost. We're going to go on to universal basic income, and we're going to attempt this AI robotic driven socialist society.
But this is the thing, Swano. You're stating that as a near future. We're saying it's already here. We
It is
have
already
Amazon
here, but
warehouses.
like,
California, for example,
Yeah.
there are
yeah,
trucks.
yeah, yeah.
We're talking about. They've trialed those and they've been so successful. They are Tesla trucks, aren't they? Not the Cybertruck, the actual Tesla trucks.
Yeah.
They've sent them up these back lanes in California and all sorts, and they've absolutely crushed it, like perfect driving. The same thing was said, and I know it's a completely different scenario, or it's a different set of circumstances. The same thing was said during the Industrial Revolution. They said all our jobs are going to go. There's going to be nothing left, and we'll all end up on basically. There's even old documents you can find. It's quite interesting to see where they were talking about a basic universal income back then, like what happens when no one's working.
Well, it was the introduction of the minimum wage or the introduction of a lower wage.
But I think what happens is I think we always find ways to pivot, or maybe that's just me. I'm just trying to cling to something again. I think where it will destroy a lot of jobs, it will create a lot of new ones as well. Is what I'm trying to say. So I think yes, we're definitely going to see unemployment rise in some areas, many areas. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a little bit older now and I'm trying to like cling to something. But I think
Honestly,
more
man,
jobs will be created.
we're obviously three different generations, but what you guys have seen in terms of how quickly technology's been implemented and come in, Bruce, obviously you understand this, and I know you do, Rich, too. But what we're going through now, it's been accelerated 100 times, and what AI is going to be doing in 5 years' time is going to be another 100 times. We're at the point where AI is creating AI, AI is hiring humans to do what AI can't. Claude, you can download that on your computer, and I can be at work, and Claude could be running things on my computer now. We're getting to the point where AI is growing so quickly, and robotics is getting so good now. And as you say, the HGVs are almost perfect. There's going to be an awful lot of jobs that are going to become very cheap labor through robotics and very easy for AI to do. So why would they hire one of us on minimum wage when this thing works
But
24 hours?
most things that are already being built right now, Swano, are already being built by robotics. Unless you go to the likes of Ferrari or somewhere like that, where it's hand-built, bespoke equipment, this has already been going on for the past 20 years. Anything worth building en masse is already being built by robotics. I think at the minute, and I'm not trying to take away from anything you're saying, I think there's a lot of doom and gloom at the moment, and we've been having. We're talking about AI and the fact that it can do X, Y, and Z, right? You go on like general AI now that's being used worldwide, and I believe the military, the government, their technology always sits about 15, 20 years ahead of ours. However, when you go onto AI now, this all singing, all dancing AI that can do everything, yes, in a lot of instances, particularly for content creation, getting ideas, things like that, trying to sort of fine tune your work, it's very, very good. You actually ask it to step outside of that and do something meaningful. AI is retarded in most circumstances. AI, as we see it at the moment, people are getting their knickers in the twist over what I believe is just a slightly more clever search engine, if we're being honest.
We're very close.
Something that brings the internet together.
We're very close. Sorry, Bruce. 2 seconds. We're very close to achieving AGI, which is like is it artificial intelligence, but at a human intelligence level. So
We're
you'll
not,
have
They've
to.
mate.
said this for
We're
20
not.
years. They've been
All
We're
saying
right.
this for
not.
20 years,
Yeah.
mate.
It's
All right,
long.
I
It's
will
light
have
years
this
away.
conversation in 12 months with you guys. 12 months, and we will see the
They
difference,
need to
and then we
perfect
will,
quantum computing before that happens,
which
and they
which
haven't got
we
close to that
which
yet.
we're very close at our level to achieving. But as you say, the military are 20, 30 years ahead. I think we're being naive to think that we're not already there.
I've read some very prominent scientific, because I did a lot of big videos on this last year about AI. In fact, the latest video I did on AI was artificial unintelligence, because it goes back to exactly what Rich just said. Artificial intelligence is the one we see, the Chat GPT, the Gemini, the Claude. They are Copilot. They are glorified search engines, and they're only trained on the data that they've got accessibility to. And most of them, unless you're paying for pro versions or you've trained your own version and bought your own version, are trained on data that's a year and a half out of date. Most of them are operating. There's actually, you can actually run it. I don't know if the test still works. At one point, you could run a test on GPT in 2025 and say, who's the current prime minister? And it would literally have an argument with you saying, Keir Starmer's not the prime minister. There's no official record of him ever being elected. And it
But
assumed that
that
Rishi Sunak still was. Seriously. Because that's the training data out of date. But I get what you're saying about the commercial viability of it. But you can go back and watch. There's a program on Netflix called Unknown Killer Robots. That program came out around about 2019, 2020, and they were describing drone technology and GPS technology and artificial intelligence then that we see today. I don't know if it's necessary. I think advanced stuff like you were mentioning, Rich, maybe 10 to 50, like really top secret stuff. But general commercial, military commercial stuff is probably 5 years ahead of us. And I think
Do you know what's more worrying? Oh, sorry, mate. It looked like you stopped
go on,
speaking then.
go on. No, you go.
There is a bit of a delay. What's more worrying to me than how intelligent people are saying AI is getting is how stupid it's making people. Like, I think that's more worrying to me than AI itself, because the amount of times I've been on X, for example, right? And someone will put below, it could be a video, it could be a comment, whatever, Grok, is this true? And Grok comes back, like you've just said, Bruce, and it's like, nope, there is absolutely no record of Keir Starmer being the Prime Minister. And you know Grok is completely wrong. You can go onto Google and do it yourself. You can then take that evidence and present it on the post and say, look, Grok is wrong. And you will be absolutely attacked for it. Like, Grok can't be wrong. It's AI. You're saying you know better than Grok. And it's like, well, yeah, because Grok is AI, and AI is retarded in most circumstances when you ask it to do any type of critical thinking or even just information gathering.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying, Swano, but I mean, bloody hell, you probably won't remember. I'm not trying to do the ages thing, but like, do you remember the Millennium, Brucey, when that was coming in? Everyone was like, "Oh my god, the computer's going to shut
when
down
everything
the
was
world." It was like,
as soon as it hit 000 on the year 2000, everything's going. The financial sector's going to collapse. Money's going to go. The banks are all going to close. It was the Millennium Bug. Look it up, Swano. The Millennium Bug.
and
Honestly.
I don't think we're there. I think what people knew back in the Millennium Bug, I think we haven't lived through yet, and that's my personal opinion. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that we are changing our financial systems in the background right now during all of this chaos. They're not mentioning it. There's new ledgers for tokenization, CBDCs going on in the background, and I think actually the millennials had some sort of inkling to what we are about to go through with robotics, with AI. But I am very understanding that I could be completely wrong, these guys could be completely insane, and I've gone down the wrong path. So I'm willing to see where it goes.
But I think it highlights on what you said is I think we live in a society now that likes to, or if it's just the algorithm that's training you on what you see, that you see these extreme versions of it, and we very rarely get down to a civilized discussion about reality, which is what I think we're trying to do to here today. You're saying that you've heard this stuff. Rich is probably looking at it from a different generation to me. I lived through and left school when the internet came out. Like, I saw our society go from everyone goes outside and plays in the park. You get booted out at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was very much that generation of a coherent age to where my parents used to kick us out in the morning. We'd bugger off down the park all day. No one batted an eyelid. Now, here's the thing. To sit there and say that kids weren't abducted back then is moronic. To sit there and say that kids didn't get into trouble back then is moronic. Do you know what the difference was? It wasn't so well documented. So what technology actually did is brought a lot of the things we see about child abduction, theft, crime, the whole technological wave, and especially with the internet, has probably just highlighted how much shit actually goes on in the world. And it was always there. It was just never, ever put to the fore. So you've always got to maintain this argument that technology, for as good as it can be, it also has its flaws. You can argue that about anything. A kettle's fucking brilliant at boiling water and making you a cup of tea. Put your hand in the fucker, you're going to burn your hand. Do you know what I mean? There's always
boil it first.
But that's the thing. That's the argument, isn't it? Is you can always make an argument good or bad, and depending on what extremes you want to go to, of is this going to ruin people's lives? How much restriction is there going to be? What are they going to do? Most people, I think, when it comes to online stuff, so we all get up in arms about things like the Online Safety Act, but it's very hard to pick that apart unless you're specific about what you're talking about, because you cannot condemn the Online Safety Act if it's there to protect kids. I think some of the stuff that was brought up by certain people in politics recently, and definitely commentators, was there was legislation that went in place there that creates a creep into normal people's lives. That's what we're all worried about. So when you get these people that condemn technology on a vast scale, going back to what Rich said about the HGVs, if HGVs become autonomous and it reduces the harm done to people with regard to families' lives being destroyed because a lorry, some pissed up driver or whatever, or someone who was tired, plowed into the back of a family car, and we saw that realistically drop significantly over time, and then there were very few accidents from it, most people would not be able to say this is a problem. And apart from that, it's cost someone their job. But would it then be a situation of you need a person to still sit in that vehicle to make sure that it doesn't go wrong? Where does it then become a point of where you entirely trust technology? So Rich is no longer the driver, but becomes the observer. Does that make sense? So you don't shift it as this is the person that needs to do the delivery. Rich could be sat in that truck for 12 hours because the AI could drive it, and it's going to work on this flawless GPS system that's going to tow the line at 30 mile an hour where it needs to and 60 mile an hour where it needs to. Maybe the human becomes the observer, which is what a lot of things truncate down to. We become more observers of what we do. Do you need a woman at a checkout to be beeping your stuff through, or are you capable of doing it yourself?
Whoa. Why is
I worked on a checkout for 20 years.
Or a man, do you give me a bloody chance? But do you need a person then? Do you need a person at a checkout to be beeping your stuff through, or can you do it yourself? Where does the trust come in then of the supermarket allowing people to do that? You then need people to monitor. So the person comes off the checkout. So it's more of a shift. The person comes off the checkout and spends more time standing in the checkout area watching what you're doing. So
not necessarily, because if we're in a digital era and we've got AI surveillance everywhere and we have this digital social credit score, if you get caught stealing from one of these shops, you can wave goodbye to your food on the table for the next 2 weeks. You can wave goodbye to hypothetically getting in your new Ford Ranger, which has a sensor, and said, "Oh, we caught you stealing a chocolate bar the other day. You now can't put your Ranger on for 1 month." This is.
I don't think it's ever going to go down that route, mate. I think that's
people in China said the same. People in China said exactly the same. But when you try socialism and communism, it can lead to this way of living. I'm not saying it's going to. And at first, I think it's going to be bloody brilliant. I think we're going to eradicate most crime. There's going to be hardly any crashes on the roads. There's going to be hardly any thefts. I think everything's going to be brilliant. But yeah, of course it will. But
will just adapt.
Of course, yes, 100%, which it did with the internet. The internet adapted to the black, the dark web. Obviously, a lot more stuff is done online through shady. There's always going to be people who are going to adapt to this. You're never ever going to eradicate it. And it's one of the funny things. If you ever watch I hate saying this, and I hate doing it. But if you ever watch Star Trek, right? They always portray it as the starship and all these elite people that are running around with their little uniforms and their little jobs, and everyone's got this greater purpose. And it weren't until the later episodes where they started doing Discovery and others where you actually saw the backwater planets and the mining operations and all the shit that was going on in the background, and they brought that forward. And I think it was more of, from the creators, you're portrayed this. So, and that's where I worry that we go to a world that is geared towards the elites again and people with wealth getting the benefit of everything that's good from it, while people like us are all still forgotten at the bottom but still doing the work. That's where I fear we go to. But I also think that there's a middle ground, and it depends on who we get in to do it, because we can easily go down a vast dystopian route or a major utopian route. I think most of us would just like something in between, because we all want to go over the speed limit a little bit now and again, don't we? And we all want to break a little rule every now and again, or bend the possibilities a little bit.
And this is the thing, we can be like massive hypocrites, can't we? Because on the one hand, I'm old school in a sense, right? Where I'm like, so for everyone watching, Swano is just typing into our private chat that he wants to take a 5-minute break after this. So I'm just going to wrap this bit up and then we're going to take a break.
Right, before we laugh, what would everyone prefer? 5-minute break, or I'll just piss myself right here?
Piss yourself right there. That's
I'm going to get called.
And you
I'm
just
going to get called some sort of wetbag for needing a break. But really,
we'll call you that anyway. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, why don't you just nip for your wee and we'll just carry on? We could just do that if you want.
You do what you want.
To be fair, I need the toilet as well. So,
should we take a 5-minute break?
Oh, that's all right.
I think I have to leave this recording. There's no pause on it.
We can just keep rolling.
Just say your bit, Rich, to round this out, because I can chop that bit out. Just say your bit to round this out.
Okay. Just sit back, Swano. Sit back. What were we saying? Okay. I think we can be quite hypocritical when it comes to digital ID, and I've even seen the protest groups, stand up against digital ID and all the rest of it. They did a protest a couple of months ago, and thousands of them turned up, and then they all went to the pub afterwards, where there was literal footage online of them all tapping their cards, like to buy their drinks and stuff. We can all be hypocrites, right? We can all be massive hypocrites. I go to Tesco, for example. Other supermarkets are available, and I'm part of the. I'm not old. I'm not particularly young, but I'm part of the generation where I could appreciate going to a till and talking to someone and scanning the items through. However, I also have mad social anxiety some days where I just don't want to talk to people. So I'm quite hypocritical as well, because I can sometimes think, do you know what? Yeah, she looks lovely on the till, or he. But I just can't be arsed with people today. So I do. I go to the self-service, I tap my card, I scan my stuff, and I go out. So, yeah, I think we can all be a bit hypocritical with it, can't we? We don't mind some control. We don't mind ease. We want ease. This is where the hypocrisy comes in. We want ease, but we don't want to give anything up for it. So it's where we draw that line.
Yes, and exactly that's exactly where my argument would be, is where's the line and how much are we prepared to shift either way? Because you can either go fully that way, or sit somewhere in the middle. And I think most coherent people who understand how society works sit somewhere in the middle, and you want to just every now and again tip a little bit that way and a little bit that way, but sit on that line.